issues, but of course, mostly from Russian perspective. And when we were invited to Mexico, there was idea to make a new work, which somehow should be related in between cultural histories and political histories between Mexico and Russia. And that was quite open invitation, and director of museum Guatemoc Medina was actually thinking that we work on legacy, or maybe Trotsky, maybe Mayakovsky, maybe Eisenstein, you know. It was actually heaps of very intense cultural relation between Soviet Union and Mexico. But and I'm very pleased that today's session started with the talk of Oleg Yasinski, who you might know he was mentioned as a main translator of Zapatista text into Russian. And luckily we knew each other from very late 90s, beginning of 2000, when he started his great work of translation and publishing the book. And I would say, like many our comrades in Europe, so we are deeply transformed by event of Zapatista revolution. You can hardly mention any other event in the second half of 20th century after 68, which was so influential, so incredibly deep, resonate in so many hearts around the world and in souls. So, and this was really important point of departure. So we told museum, so we'll work on Zapatism. But of course, we didn't want to, and we are not legitimate at all to speak about Chiapas, to speak about indigenous communities. We don't know proper Spanish, nothing. We could only speak about how these ideas represented in the books, represented through films, through incredible solidarity network, when people came to Chiapas, delegations, mostly from Greece, Italy, made incredible help to sustain this movement. And of course, for us was natural to start with our Russian situation, because people of my generation, they have real life, I mean, not life, indirect experiences of um, encountering this text and be part of movement of the movements and social forums and so on and so on. From the beginning of 2000, maybe you remember these events which were deeply rooted through that Zapatista approach to fight to social issues and so on. And at the same time, you can hardly deal with that without possibility to travel to Chiapas, to meet people, to little bit have immediate experience. And that was really crucial for us. And we traveled a few times to Chiapas, and we're lucky. Some people actually posted in chat interview with Subcommandante Moises, which we did online, and actually it was translated in many languages. Actually, original was Spanish, Russian. And again, thanks to Oleg, it was brilliantly translated in between two languages, you know. And yeah, and we did quite quite big scale project. And luckily enough, you also, I mean, Nika asked me to be limited maybe to 10 minutes. So that's why I'm maybe kind of hurry, and actually maybe I can also answer some questions if they arise. And yeah, and actually you can't imagine that for the first time, through the help of many friends who were involved, and Beatriz Aurora and Gloria Ramundes from Disinformemos. So yeah, it was really, really very interesting connection. But for the first time, we managed to bring big body of Zapatista original paintings, big scale, like 3 meters work, not murals, but works done on kind of different materials, on textile, on kind of vinyl uh, to one of the central museum in Mexico. So, and at the same time, you know, I'm speaking from artistic position and the vision of Zapatism, because it's really, for us, it's very interesting and very important that also point of entrance, how we can get into it, because it's really very strong, powerful realization of Marxist class approach and indigenous cosmology. So that's exactly what you can see in the artistic work, in murals too, and especially murals particularly produced by artists from Zapatista community. So we exhibit them for the first time. Maybe I'm trying to, maybe just we made a film. So, but maybe I can show. Yeah, this is actually the pictures which we show that um, the works by Zapatista represented together with our works, and it was incredible honor for us and also incredible trust. And back to nowadays, oh, not back, just talking about nowadays. Today I was in another big meeting, actually, as you know, all of a sudden our dreams kind of coming true, and big delegation of Zapatistas supposed to visit our countries. And my idea, again, as an artist, I really would love to make real, how to say, full-scale show which might represent the works of Zapatista from Compa Arte Festival or some other works, together with the works of artists around the world who obviously were influenced by Zapatista approach to politics, to poetry, to cosmology and everything. And of course, the only place where it can happen only in Madrid, where it will be culmination on 13th of August, exactly the day when Columbus symbolically left Spain or Portugal and went across the ocean, you know. And of course, it can be done only on the premises of social center. And social center already waiting. It's a big movement actually waiting for Zapatista, and people well prepared. There is accommodation, there is money, there is situation, so to say. Actually, most social centers in Italy, in Spain, in Germany, I don't know about UK much, but I'm sure also. But the exhibition can be there in Tabacalera, and also, if we consider it properly, it really needs some serious, how to say, logistic, curatorial work, and backing. And actually, today there was talk with director of Museum of Reina Sofia, and actually looks like they're also making together with Tabacalera. So we'll see. I hope in next week it will be open letter addressing Zapatista, like open invitation to realize this particular show, which I will be honored to be part of, together with our works, maybe helping to co-curating, but definitely it will be mostly people from Mexico and Spain for sure. And also we were part of very important project in Havana about arte Zapatista, which was also collected incredible number of international artists and also works of Zapatista. So here I can finish. I guess I'm exactly in time, so I stop this demonstration. Yeah, and if you have immediate question, I'm will be pleasure to answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. Can I answer? Can I ask?
Please. Yeah. You're the host.
No. So it's a question actually to you and to Oleg in the same time. The question is, what is the difference between idea of being an artist in Zapatista's community and in our Western art world? Because you work with them closely, but you're part of the West. Western art world as well.
Mm.
And then also question to Oleg. Yeah?
Олег, я извиняюсь, мне пришлось по-английски говорить. Я
извиняю тебя,
конечно. Но я думаю, что ты там понял примерно. Я вот тебя, ты слышал все Есинский.
Это я понял эту часть, да.
Да. Ты понял вопрос, Ники, о том,
повтори,
что значит быть художником в запатистских караколях? Что значит, если у них такая позиция как художник? Я знаю, что ее нет, но лучше, если ты ответишь и как бы...
Хорошо.
Не то я много говорил.
Хорошо.
Спасибо.
Говоря о запатистских общинах, вообще об индейских общинах в Мексике, потому что интересно то, что не только запатисты организованы, еще очень много других индейских организаций, в которых, в отличие от запатистов, может не быть оружия, ну, хотя большинство запатистов тоже безоружные.
Ты будешь переводить, или мне переводить?
Лучше ты переводи, пожалуйста. Я как-то...
Окей, тогда...
Тем более ты знаешь все, что я скажу, да.
Okay, we just negotiate who will translate Oleg, and Nika suggests that I will do it. So Oleg started to tell that apart from Zapatistas communities like Caracoles and Chiapas, there are also many other indigenous communities who are not exactly Zapatista, but kind of supporters, so affinity groups that are in many villages. Yeah, so go ahead. Продолжай.
Я думаю, что в мексиканском опыте самое главное – это опыт массовой гражданской организации снизу и упражнения в реальной демократии, где принимают решения не...
Mexican in Chiapas experience of grassroots democracy and civic activity, which happens not only in Zapatista communities, but also outside them.
То есть практика реальной повседневной демократии, которая подчиняется мирным гражданским общинам.
The practice of real grassroots democracy, which is subjugated to that civic communities.
А не каким-то вертикальным структурам или просветленным авангардам, которые исторически уже провалились еще в прошлом веке.
But without that kind of vertical hierarchical relations and without any kind of avant-gardist spirit and with the leaders and so on.
И я думаю, что роль художников и искусства вообще нужно рассматривать из этой другой совершенно парадигмы, в отличие от Запада, который разделен на артистов и всех остальных.
And you should consider the role of artists through that kind of completely another structure of that civil society, which is not civil society in Marxian sense, which we are very critical about. I'm sorry, I'm translating a little bit improvising. Yeah, but actually through that complete real implementation of horizontal true democracy.
Когда-то давно я спрашивал у людей, близких к запатизму, почему они не произвели такого искусства, как советская революция, или как сандинисты, или как чилийская революция в свое время.
Once I asked some comrades why Zapatista haven't produced such a big pieces of great art like Sandinistas or Chilean movement and Russian Revolution probably.
И мне ответили, что запатисты, все, что они это делают для себя, то есть они не собираются никого впечатлить, они не думают о маркетинге, они создают то искусство и в той мере, в которой это им реально нужно в повседневной жизни.
And the answer was very simple, that Zapatistas produce art not to impress someone outside their community, to create such incredible, powerful, magnificent pieces, but something very useful for exactly their survival and sustainability of their communities.
Здесь можно проще, наверное, говорить, например, о том, как делается хроника сапатистской жизни, хроника сапатистской истории.
It's very
Потому что
important to mention how chronicles of Zapatistas every day and Zapatista history is manufactured. Mhm.
очень интересно, что даже в таком мировом хранилище или мусорнике, как интернет, нет ни одной съемки до сих пор базы сапатистской армии, например. Там не было ни одного журналиста. Никогда это не стало
Actually,
публичным.
if you surf on the internet, you can hardly find any documentation of camp where real Zapatistas armed commanders and army is based. Nothing.
Потому что сапатисты думают, что лучше, чем они, никто эту историю не расскажет все равно. И готовят собственные кадры документалистов и так далее, которые сами своими глазами пытаются переварить и через себя показать миру эту историю.
And actually, they completely control the production of imagery, and actually that production of imagery comes through that kind of local media groups. As far as I remember, they have really very interesting development with early internet development in the late 90s. In this group, produce their own history, chronicles, which again used inside the communities. So.
Есть здесь еще один очень интересный, важный и трудно понимаемый с нашей колокольни момент.
There is another very complicated situation which we can hardly comprehend from being outside of this situation.
Сапатистский проект, он глубоко коллективный с самого начала.
Zapatista project is it's based on the collective idea of creativity from the very beginning.
Здесь нет места личным протагонизмам, в отличие от всей западной традиции искусства, где и художник, творец, личность и так далее. Среди сапатистов нет проклятых поэтов, например, и не может быть.
So compared to the Western tradition of that personal ego of a genius, a character of artistic labor, and so on and so on, Zapatista have nothing to do with that. And again, as Oleg mentioned, they based on that kind of collective spirit of creation. And there are no that kind of genius, outsider art, which are not part of community. Such figures can't simply appear in this situation.
Поэтому я думаю, что вот этот вот эксперимент, опыт коллективного создания искусства, как и опыт коллективного правления, он сейчас только строится, он только выстраивается, нет уже готовых каких-то моделей, предложений и схем. Все происходит в процессе. А то, что находится в творческой лаборатории в процессе, не всегда это все надо полностью показывать.
And right now, these models are permanently in the process of becoming. And also, maybe I address also this question to Oleg. Actually, it's also my experience that the Zapatista community are not transparent at all. There are many things you feel they are hidden. You are not allowed to get in because they produce for completely another purposes of that kind of sustainability, growing and flourishing of this community. That's why many kind of creative manifestation might be not visible.
И опять же, это мои личные индивидуалистские интерпретации, в которых я могу ошибаться.
And again, Oleg mentioned it his individualistic interpretation, which might be wrong. Олег, я перейду на английский, тоже немножко откомментирую. Я думаю, что ты прав. Actually, Oleg very precisely explained, and also my experiences are absolutely intact what he actually commented, and there is a big difference. For example, most of works which we exhibited in MOAC was done by collective. So you see they are signed and Barrio, blah, 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 and 5 names. So yeah, they're not nameless, but at the same time, it's always worked by brigade, to say. Я сказал, что это как бы все работы, которые были у нас на выставке, они были подписаны как такими бригадами художников из разных как бы каракулей.
Я помню просто наш опыт пытаться снять документальный фильм о сапатистах.
Олег recall his experience of making documentary film about Zapatism.
Неудачный опыт, естественно.
Completely failed.
Потому что с точки зрения какого-то прогрессивного кинодокументалиста, сапатисты обязательно оденут на себя маску и будут рассказывать о своей борьбе с удовольствием. То есть это часть известной нам парадигмы.
Because from even imagination of very progressive filmmakers, they expect that frames, that Zapatista in mask will speak revolutionary ideas, but it didn't happen.
А реально одеть маску и говорить от имени всего коллективного опыта, от имени всех сапатистов и так далее, есть всего у нескольких человек, у которых эти функции есть. И опять же, это должно быть общинное решение. То есть хотим мы об этом говорить или не хотим, и с кем мы хотим, и с кем не хотим об этом говорить.
And also always, of course, you see some people like in that interview which we made reference where Oleg and Subcommandant Moises was talking about. But at the same time, you should understand that behind this possibility to talk, there is collective decision by assembly that this person is delegated to discuss this, and with whom he or she will be discussing these topics. So, and with whom will be no talks. А с кем будет разговор, да, я вот сказал.
Да, да. И опять же, тот, кто захочет, и многие так делают, рассматривают это через понятную Западу призму бюрократии. Не скажу, что вообще такой бюрократии, как у сапатистов, даже у кубинцев нет. Что с сапатистами вообще невозможно иметь дело.
And people from this Western perspective, they would complain about incredible level of bureaucracy, which even more heavy than in Cuba or in many other places. But it's not, because it's completely another understanding. It's not about bureaucracy. Ну да, я говорю, что это не бюрократия, как вот там на Кубе.
А то, что сложнее, это понять, что мы действительно имеем дело с другим историческим опытом, с другой культурой, с другой реальностью. И лучше, как в свое время сапатисты, не спешить интерпретировать, называть или обзывать это все какими-то понятными нам словами. Лучше промолчать и пытаться понять, выдержать какое-то время, чтобы чему-то новому научиться.
And what Oleg told, it's in this situation, you better not to force to quickly interpret, to put some labels on it, but better take a distance, carefully listen, and trying to follow and understand what is transmitted to you.
Вот это, я думаю, вкратце о сапатистском искусстве.
Very short. Sorry for that. I'm not professional translator, and you know.
Thank you very much, Dima. Yeah, I have more questions, but I think we should kind of wrap up our assembly, and we have one more topic. Yeah, and so, but it's really interesting. Maybe we can have more discussion about decision making in our documentary. And can interview Oleg about that with translation.
Tanya has her hand up, so and I think you have for a while. So shall we just do one quick question?
Oh, just really quickly, I actually forgot that my hand was up and I put it in the chat, but I can address. thank you so much. So I put in the chat that I have a really good friend who's done a lot of work with the Zapatistas and the Black Panthers. He's a sculptural professor out of Fresno, and he would be a fantastic person to connect with. I'm not sure if you already have. His name is Kaleb Duarte, and I would be happy to connect you.
Thank you. Would be really great. Yeah, Tanya. Yeah. So if I could get your contact, but maybe through Nika, maybe, or just
You can just put it on chat. That's
yeah. Put it, please.
Exciting.
Yes, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dimitri and Oleg. That was and everybody else. I think the next point on the agenda is to talk about the visual assembly, and I'm hoping that most people here are familiar with the idea of the visual assembly. It's something that David and Nika were working on last year, and the first one was held during the first lockdown, and it was about reimagining the idea of what a city could be by replacing consumption and production with care and freedom. And ideally what happens is that everybody comes together and discusses how to sort of reimagine whatever the subject is. It could be a city, it could be what is a museum, it could be anything that one decides. And the findings and the agreements and the discussions of that meeting are then recorded on the ground in public space with stencils and chalk and things, so that at the end of the process there's a wonderful piece of public art that's left. And the second visual assembly was meant to be happening in Graz in Austria on the 11th of October last year, and of course that was the day instead when the Carnival for David was held in 250 places around the world. And this year on the 11th of October, the plan is to have an anti-colonial visual assembly, collective public art project made in David's memory and coordinating it with the Zapatistas. So super exciting opportunity to bring the visual assembly together with the visit of the Zapatistas. And what we'd like to do now is just have a brief brainstorm around how the visual assembly, but hopefully by the 11th of October this year, we're all allowed out to properly play with each other. But what we also want to do is make sure that we can bring this to life online as well. So I'm going to hand over to John Fass, our resident expert in all things technological systems like and online, who's going to hopefully give us a couple of provocations to maybe sort of start thinking about how we might do that. John, thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. We're back into resident expert territory. that always makes me nervous. I thought I might start maybe by sort of asking the collective brain, the hive mind, a couple of questions, which would be great if they could be sort of, if there's some way that we could synthesize them to single sentence answers. I don't mean that everyone does 50 sentences and we make them into one. I mean, perhaps some agreement about one, for example, what are the key aims of the visual assembly? Are they to be as visible as possible to as many people as possible? Or are they to provoke discussion about what a city is? And are those answers focused on infrastructural change, or are they focused on social change? Or what is the relationship between the built environment and the people that inhabit the built environment, or the people that make decisions about the nature of the built environment? Who's the audience for the visual assembly? Does it extend beyond the immediate participants? I would say yes, it does, clearly, because there's documentation and people can see it. But who is it? Who do we intend for it to reach? Who would we want to see it and think, wow, that looks amazing, let's do that, or let's replicate that? Or how could we incorporate this method of discourse into more formal decision-making processes, which for me, you know, that would be a key aim for me. That would be perhaps a methodological type of question. Is this an urban planning project? And what's the nature of the relationship between it being an art project and an urban planning project? There's a very, very long history of artists involved in urban planning types of things on lots of levels, from graffiti to architecture, and that goes back, you know, certainly 150 years, I'd say, of people sort of agitating to be involved in the design of urban space. I know I'm just firing questions, but it might be interesting to think about at what level or levels does the visual assembly seek to connect the spatial, the social, and the systemic? Does it wish to take a systemic view of the discursive nature of how cities come about, and a systemic view of the social life in cities and how they come about or maybe changed, and a systemic view of any other thing that we could think of? And if so, how does a visual assembly define what a system is at this level? Does it care as much about sewage systems as it does about you know, who gets access to the hospital, for example? And then that's maybe connected to an important question for me, which is, it's visual, which is great. You know, that's all my background and training is in visuality and representation. How far does the visual assembly aspire to be noticed by art world people? Does it not care at all about that? Or does it seek to provoke questions and attention from the more structured art industry, which is very fractured itself and isn't really one thing? I know that's loads of questions, and it may not be kind of necessary to think about them all. Gabby, I agree, attention, but I suppose I would say, you know, there's two sides to that. Who is paying attention? Who do we want to pay attention? And what do we pay attention to? Are we paying attention to specific cities? So we care about Cardiff or Vienna, or we care about Pittsburgh. Do we care about specific neighborhoods or even specific buildings? Or do we care about how those things are connected to each other? If art world is not the main audience, then who is the main audience? Everyone who lives in a city is so broad as to be not particularly useful, I would argue. Do we wish to talk to ourselves and people like us, or do we wish to extend beyond our immediate circle and, you know, perhaps people that all speak and understand the same type of discursive language? And if so, is it necessary to develop, you know, I love the idea of visual language, and I think those things often transcend perhaps the specific languages that might appear in social circles or intellectual circles or whatever. Then the next part perhaps is about what do we do digitally? So the documentation that I, you know, caught a glimpse of, I thought it was quite beautiful. The idea that there's some people on the ground and some people online, and that made me think a little bit about signals sent into space, and how there's that definition of cultural probes that says it seeks to discover uncertain information from unknown populations at an undiscoverable time. And is it a bit like that? Could you massively open source the characteristics and number of people who are asking the questions, and diversify the places where those questions are being manifested visually in some way? That would be an interesting way to think about the digital relationship. And then I thought just briefly about the Graffiti Research Lab and Evan Roth, and it's going back a bit, but they came up with some beautiful technologies that they called laser tag, and laser is an acronym, so it has dots after each letter, where you can draw on buildings using computer vision with a laser pointer. So you're doing digital graffiti onto buildings, and that strikes me maybe as quite an interesting a way of doing things, and would certainly be very noticeable in a previous life, I had a strange job with photographing projections on enormous buildings. We projected onto the Houses of Parliament with a 5,000 watt projector, massive machine, looked like a cannon coming out the back of a van. But it was very, very visible. We got on my job was to get the pictures on the front page of the newspaper, and we were pretty successful at that. Those things can be very, very visible. That's kind of, I know that opens up a lot of things, but it sort of feels to me like it would be good to think about some of those aims or articulate. It's about positioning, I guess. How is the visual assembly and what it does positioned in the complex interweaving of graffiti and art and urban planning and rebellion and revolutionary aims and social change? I know that's a big question, but yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Thanks, John. It is totally a big question, isn't it? It's amazing, which I guess is why we are all gathered here on Friday evenings. Jose and Stefania have hands up. So Jose first.
I can let Stefania go first if that's okay with her.
Okay.
Such a gentleman. Thank you, Jose. I just first of all would like to thank you, such a inspiring community, and I've been invited to attend this call by Simona, and I'm really totally fascinated. Why I'm so fascinated? Because of the poetic frame that you're just drawing up and the connections. In fact, I'm really thrilled to be learning more, because personally I have worked in the international environmental cooperation for a long time. And when I just came out of that, kind of bombage, I realized that policies and those climate negotiations would never get to solutions. And that's been when I came up with my own project, which is called Earth Platform, which is like, it means art at the heart of the earth. And the goal is very much of channeling, all the different opportunities through art, because somehow through art, an image can convey much more than, the technicalities of a policy. And I just look forward to be listening more, understanding more, and find a way to be getting into, this flow of unconsciousness. Thank you.
Thanks, Stefania.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to say this is a great meeting, especially because every time I hear the Zapatistas being mentioned, I'm super happy. I'm part of Yapastanets, that is a network that is doing the coordination of the trip in Germany, and I'm part of the co-coordinator of the arts and culture group. So this is like the perfect meeting that I didn't even know existed. So I have to thank Simona Ferlini for inviting me, and I was just getting in contact with nikadubrovsky, and I had no idea about visual assembly, which was pretty much what we wanted to do with a local group of local artists. And it's very difficult to get people to collaborate, I think, because what you mentioned in this meeting, that we are so indoctrinated into thinking we have to do things alone. It's very discouraged to do teamwork. And I think this is something that I have been learning from the Zapatistas. That is something that is very difficult, but I think when things are doing collective, we can achieve much better things. So I'm very happy to connect with anyone who wants to help. I also know that, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, Herif, but we already friends on Twitter, so that's pretty cool. So that that I already met so many people beforehand without knowing. And also I didn't know that Oleg, I had seen your interview and thought was fantastic. I didn't understand the Russian part, but the Spanish and the German subtitle was really good. So thank you.
Thanks, Jose. Has anybody got anything that they'd like to say about the visual assembly and the online? Elizabeth, you have your hand up.
Hi, hi everyone. Nice to be here again. Really, really inspiring conversation. I'll just put forward the idea that visual assembly is sort of conceptually akin to the bicycle. And we're just not sure what it can do until we start trying to ride it. And so our free school is offering a weekly course gathering to explore visual assembly, but starting February 18th. And our goal is to meet weekly until we don't want to do it anymore. And so we'll be exploring techniques like how to make marks in public, materials, stencil making, iconography, the technology. And if you're an artist who's interested in starting to explore the materials sooner rather than later, please join us.
Brilliant.
I think TJ put a link to the course registration in the chat. And everyone's welcome. You should, Gabby.
Yeah, that link is in the chat. I think that's absolutely right. The idea of the bicycle, until we've worked out where we can go and what we can do, it's reminded me of one of the things that David said after the first one that happened in Portobello. He said the idea was to show people the approach is fun and to give people an experience of opening up imagination. In a way, it's like popcorn, the consensus brainstorming tool, where no one can be criticized for any idea, no matter what it is. Then you record it all and then try to see what you can do with it. So this kind of idea, the idea of being imaginative, and then we can kind of go, right, well, what does that mean for Guadalajara? What does that mean for Cape Town or our own backyards? I guess we'll come back to this idea of how to get the real world and the online manifestation working out, and how we can have things happening on the ground, and also then people meeting online as well, because regardless of whether we're allowed out and about, we're not all in the same place anyway. So kind of we're going to want to sort of hang out and discuss things and be part of what's happening on the ground in Manila or in Anchorage or wherever these things happen. So that's cool. I don't know whether that Rob, do you have a hand up there?
Yeah, I do. If that's okay. Yeah, quickly cool. Then perhaps. Some of these ideas that are coming past the screen at the moment are very interesting. There's a few of us in the background here who wanted to set up some sort of a room within the museum, which we wanted to call the Revolution Club. And this would be hopefully an online thing for some artistic events, maybe an open mic type thing and stuff like that. And I was hoping that our resident expert, John Fass, would tell us exactly how we're going to do that on, what's it called? Discord. Yeah. Thank you. If we've got time for that, I'm sorry if I've raised it a bit late.
Rob, you create a channel and a workspace, you invite people to it, and off you go.
Thank you. We'll thank you. We'll do that.
I'm happy to communicate in a side channel if more guidance would be useful.
Can you contact me on Discord? I'm semiotext over there.
Yeah, I can.
We also have the video of John and I forgot the name. John's friend, yeah, who came and explained it all. So if somebody has precise technical questions, they can just watch the video. It's on YouTube, and yeah, I have to put it on the site. I will do that.
It's 9:15, so I don't know how people are doing, but we did say we'd try and keep it to an hour, so we've run over a little bit. There are some announcements, Nika. Is that something that you want to talk about? I've got the list, but I'm not sure about how to expand on them.
I think reading group Vasily he's still there. We wanted to skip next Friday, and Vasily, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, because the DLSC is organizing a reading group about the democracy project, so we're thinking maybe we all go there and we resume as normal in the fortnight, which means on the, yeah, so it's on the 19th of February. And the text should be the modes of production, and it's going to be facilitated by Steve, who's here as well. Ready for that? Cool. That's all.
Brilliant. And then is Matthew here to talk about the history of the Museum of Care? Oh, there you go. Hello, Matt. Yep.
Hello. So this came out of some of the discussions we had about how decisions are made a couple of weeks ago after one of the assemblies. And we've been working on, myself, Nika, TJ, Gabby, some other people, various people have been working on a small, various people have been working on a small short history of basically the last 6 months. Because as you know, as the one of the I forget who said the lie was, I understand everything that is happening right now in Museum of Care. There's a lot that goes on. There's a lot I learned through the process, but we basically compiled it into a couple-page document to help kind of inform new people, inform people that have been here that have missed stuff. There's stuff pulled in from email threads that happened there, and to help everyone to get a sense of what the vision that has evolved over time is. I think that's going to eventually be a blog post on your website, on the museum.care website, Nika, or?
I suggest we just put the whichever the collective. You can post the link to.
I'll post the link
now.
Yeah,
but
right here.
Also, yeah, but also we post it on the website as a text and open it for comments. But
yes.
The blog post, the blog, Ivan and Andre created a possibility for everybody to write little blogs and comments for the Museum of Care collective documentary. And that's the last announcement for today, because tomorrow at 1 o'clock London time, we can all came to the same Zoom and interview again Andrew Bauer. If you remember him, he was here in the visual assembly one, our assembly once. This is a person, I just remind quickly, it's a spectacular person who did the open source project called RepRap. And this is basically a father of all 3D printers that exist now. RepRap is model for everything. So he will answer our questions about decision-making process in an open source community, because he's running more or less this project for the last 15 years, and thousands of people around the world who is involved in that very successfully. And so we can ask him whatever we want. We don't have any prepared questions. So we just come on Zoom tomorrow at 1. And if you have questions, he's happy to answer us for about 40 minutes. And that will be the next, this Saturday, and the Saturday after that, in the collective documentary, we will talk with Paul, who was invited by Claire Farrell, and he is a policeman, and we can talk about how the decision-making process is going in the police department in the UK. And then we open for other interviews. So you just sign up as a comments in the museum.care in the section called documentary. You just propose something. Or if you don't want to do it on Saturday, you can do it anytime you want, by yourself or with somebody else. So Rob was very active, and he already did interviews, and he's going to do more. One of them will be with me and Gabi on the 6th of February, if I remember. And please check out the interviews that you already did.
The date again, because I think we can't go this day. But I wanted to ask something. Yeah, so there was a bit of, there was this idea about that, I don't know, I just wanted to like throw it on the circle, and we can sleep on it maybe. So someone said David's birthday is on the 12th, and that's a Friday. So maybe we could think of a way of commemorating it. And there were some ideas about like magic party or magic something, everyone wearing the same background, like around the fire or something, or memories. I don't know. That's just an idea.
Wow, thank you so much. Amazing. Yes. Yeah, maybe, if you guys can organize it, just tell us what to do. That will be amazing.
Cool. Yeah, let's think about it. We have 2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's amazing. That's a really brilliant idea. Okay, I think we're done for tonight. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Oleg and Dimitri. Thank you, everyone that's read, and thank you, John. Yeah. So next week, if I was listening attentively enough, next week is reading group at the LSE. Was that right?
Yes.
So back here the week after that, which will be the 12th. Lovely.
Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone.
As always, a lovely way to end the weekday part of the week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye, everyone.